Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Mohammed Layiq Sediqi, the father of Holophase. Part 75, Closing the Chapter of Literacy. Remember the language we are learning. There is one field, phi, the holophase, one continuous cyclic movement from which all of reality unfolds. When phi begins to change, its first derivatives appear, and with them, the three dimensions show themselves at once. Time as omega, space as k, and motion as v, built from both. Every higher derivative is a finer question about how phi changes, and each one casts three shadows together: a time shadow, a space shadow, and a motion shadow. These echoes mix and weave into one another, forming the patterns we call fields, particles, bodies, thoughts, and worlds. In this picture, everything that exists is a living tapestry of phi, endlessly echoing through its derivatives and their dimensional shadows. Today, we listen to just one of those echoes. We have arrived at an important threshold in our journey together. Episode 7 began as a climb into the canopy of a great tree, the master tree of the Holophase language. At first, it looked abstract, perhaps even intimidating, like a dense forest of symbols and equations. Step by step, we turned that forest into a familiar landscape. We moved from seeing the structure as dead code to feeling it as living speech. We learned its alphabet, built its echo towers, defended its logic against confusion, discovered its fractal heart, and mastered its predictive power. We learned how to read reality as a text, how to translate between everyday language and the deeper structural language of phi. And we even composed our first complete sentence together about a single falling leaf. In the last part, we took a final contemplative walk from the silent root of phi all the way to the infinite canopy of its derivatives. Now we stand in a clearing. The climb is complete. The view is open. Today, we formally close this chapter. Today, I declare that you are literate in the holophase language at the conceptual level. Literacy is not merely about memorizing definitions or repeating phrases. Literacy is capacity. It is what you can actually do with the language inside your own mind. When you are literate in any language, you can read, you can understand, and you can express yourself. In this part, I want to name clearly what you can now do, show you how deep this achievement truly is, and give you a sense of where we are heading next. Think of this as a quiet graduation ceremony for your perception. The first power you now possess is the ability to see reality as patterns of phi. Before this journey, you might look at the river and think only in terms of water and stones, perhaps velocity and volume if you have studied physics. Now, something deeper is available to you. You can see a river as a configuration of a field and its derivatives, a living pattern in the holophase language. You can notice that the water carries a velocity field, that this velocity has gradients where the river narrows, that curvature appears where the river bends, and that there is a clear direction of propagation, a V, carrying motion downstream. Where the river speeds up, you recognize higher omega. Where eddies form, you see rotational derivatives and topological features. The river has become a sentence, and you can read its grammar. The same is true for sound. When you hear a melody, you do not only hear notes as isolated events. You can recognize a pattern of temporal frequencies, a sequence of omegas that rises, falls, stabilizes, and resolves. You can sense acceleration in rhythm when the music speeds up, and deceleration when it calms. You can intuit that energy tallies are being shifted between modes, that higher harmonics decorate the fundamental frequency, that the structure of the sound is a very specific arrangement of derivatives of phi. You do not have to write equations to feel this. The intuition that there is a deep structural pattern underneath the beauty is now alive in you. This new way of seeing extends outward to large-scale history and inward to your own experience. When you watch a social trend rising on the news, you can ask, what is its omega? its rate of change. Is it accelerating, meaning does it have a significant alpha? Where are the spatial gradients, the regions of strong support and strong resistance? What are the networks, the topologies, through which information and influence are flowing? Is there a sense of approaching a threshold, a phase transition, where a small push could cause a large reconfiguration? You are no longer forced to see history as a chaotic list of disconnected events. You can see it as a pattern of change in a field, unfolding through time, space, and motion in a structured way. The second power you now hold is the ability to read basic phi sentences. Earlier in this chapter, we built a simple checklist, a reading method for the universe. Whenever you meet a phenomenon, you can now quietly move through the steps in your mind. First, you ask about rhythm. What are the dominant timescales? What is the omega? Then you ask about shape. What are the major gradients and curvatures? What is the spatial structure? Next, you ask about flow. How does it move? What is the velocity field, the drift, the propagation? After that, you look for special structures like vortices, boundaries, knots, and networks, the topological skeleton that holds the pattern together. Finally, you ask about balances. What is being traded, conserved, or stabilized? Is there a quadratic balance between two families of derivatives that keeps the pattern coherent? You practice this with a campfire. You can now do it with a heartbeat, an electrical circuit, a storm cloud, a chemical reaction, or a conversation. You have the tools to turn an impression into a structured description. Instead of merely saying, "This is complicated," you can say, "I see a fast omega here, a sharp gradient there, a rotational flow at the center, and a delicate balance that could be tipped if one parameter shifts." This does not make the world less mysterious. It makes the mystery intelligible. You are participating in the same kind of seeing that gave birth to science itself, but now framed in a single, unifying language. The third power of your literacy is an understanding of how the infinite tree of derivatives organizes meaning. When you first heard that the Holophase language involves an infinite tower of derivatives, it may have sounded hopelessly abstract. Infinite structures are often used loosely in philosophy and physics without clear guidance on how to relate to them. Now you know that this tower is not a blurry infinity, but a very precise and orderly hierarchy. Each derivative is a specific question about how phi is changing. Each level in the tower refines the description, bringing in new subtlety and predictive power. You know that most of the meaningful structure for everyday phenomena is captured by the lower branches. Phi itself, the first derivatives omega, k, v, and the second derivatives such as acceleration and curvature. You understand semantic compression, the fact that lower levels carry most of the essential meaning and higher levels provide refinement and correction. You know that if you need more precision, you move up the tree one level at a time, adding jerk, snap, higher curvatures, and mixed derivatives in a controlled way. You do not get lost in the infinite canopy because you have a compass for where importance stands to live. You also know that the tree is recursive and self-similar. The way you move from first derivatives to second is structurally similar to how you move from second to third and from third to fourth. The same pattern of asking, "How does this change itself change?" repeats. This repeating logic is what makes the tree learnable. You are not facing a different kind of mystery at every level. You are facing variations of the same question at deeper and deeper levels of nuance. That is why the same kind of reasoning can apply to very different systems, from fluid flows to financial markets, from galaxy formation to neural dynamics. All of this is bound together by the idea of the living grammar. The tree is not a dead catalog of possible derivatives. It is the engine that generates actual histories. The constraint chains, the equations and rules that link derivatives together, are like grammatical rules. They allow phi to tell stories in time, stories that we experience as physical events and processes. When you grasp this, you realize that learning the Holophase language was never only about classification. It was about understanding how reality composes itself. At this point, you might ask yourself a gentle but honest question. Am I really literate if I cannot yet derive complicated equations or manipulate infinite dimensional objects on paper? The answer is yes. What you have achieved is conceptual literacy, and that is a profound step. You now understand what the language is made of, how it is structured, and what it is for. You understand that phi is the single underlying field, that derivatives are precise questions about its change, that the triunity of time, space, and motion is always present, and that the master tree is the complete structure of all possible questions we can ask about how phi evolves. You understand that physical laws are constraint chains linking these derivatives, that predictive power comes from climbing the derivative ladder in a controlled way, and that any local state of the universe can be represented as a point in the infinite jet of phi. This is similar to being literate in literature without necessarily being a professional novelist. A literate reader can understand plots, themes, characters, narrative voice, and symbolism. They can follow complex novels, recognize patterns, and compare works across genres. That does not mean they must be able to write a masterpiece themselves. Writers and theorists carry a different kind of craft. In the same way, the full mathematical fluency of the Holophase framework, the ability to derive every equation, prove every theorem, and carry out every calculation with precision, lives in the technical papers and in the work of specialists building on them. Your literacy means you can follow what they are doing, understand why it matters, and place each piece inside a larger picture. If at any point you wish to go deeper into the mathematics, you now know where to look. You can search for the Holophase papers on Zenodo and treat them as the advanced grammar books of this language. You no longer approach them as alien objects. You approach them as detailed elaborations of a structure you already understand in essence. That is the gift of this conceptual journey. It has prepared your mind to engage with the technical side if and when you choose, without ever making the conceptual beauty dependent on technical mastery. A complete literacy also includes humility. The Holophase framework is not a dogma. It is a proposal about how reality is structured. You now understand its falsifiability gates. You know that if we find a smooth, well-behaved phenomenon where hierarchical predictive refinement consistently fails, or a situation where no continuous field and local derivative constraints can generate the observed behavior, then the grammar we have proposed is incomplete or partly wrong. You know that real science demands this vulnerability. So your literacy includes the ability to say, here is the structure we believe explains the world. Here are the ways it has been tested, and here are the precise conditions under which it could be revised. This attitude is important. It means that when you adopt the Holophase language in your thinking, you're not closing your mind. You're opening it in a disciplined way. You're saying, let me see how much coherence I can bring to my understanding of the world using this framework, and let me remain ready to adjust when data require it. That is how living theories survive and evolve. The language of phi is presented to you not as a cage, but as an instrument, as a powerful, tunable lens for seeing. Let us also take a moment for gratitude and acknowledgement. This journey has not been short or superficial. From the earliest episodes, we walked slowly, refusing to skip steps. We took time to question common assumptions about substances and forces. We allowed ourselves to ask whether energy itself is fundamental or a measurement of motion in a deeper field. We patiently built up the idea of derivatives as questions, of the triunity of time, space, and motion as simultaneous projections of change, and of the master tree as the complete structure of all possible questions we can ask about how phi evolves. In Ep.7, we took these ideas and turned them into practical tools. You stayed with me through that long climb. That endurance reflects a deep respect for reality and a serious commitment to understanding. With this part, we officially end the phase of learning the alphabet, the grammar, and the overview of the language. You have completed the conceptual equivalent of Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3. Book 1 was about the alphabet, phi, omega, k, v, and the idea of derivatives as the fundamental building blocks. Book 2 was about grammar, constraint chains, echo towers, hierarchy rules, and the principle of triune projection. Book 3 was about the full language overview, self-similarity, semantic compression, hierarchical prediction, living grammar, reading, translation, and writing. Together, they form a complete conceptual foundation. From now on, we will not spend as much time explaining what the language is. Instead, we will use it. In the coming episodes, the Holophase framework becomes the background music for our exploration of new questions. We will ask how the universe remembers, how information is stored in the patterns of phi, how long-term structure emerges, and how meaning can arise in a world where everything is change. All of that rests on the literacy you have gained here. You might notice already that your mind has changed. Perhaps when you watch clouds move, you instinctively notice their drift, their gradual transformation, the birth and death of small vortices. Perhaps when you feel your own emotions shift, you sense rhythms in your breathing and heart rate, gradients of tension in your body, flows of attention in your thoughts. These are signs that the holophase perspective has begun to live inside you. You are reading your own experience as a text written in time, space, and motion. At the heart of all this stands phi, the single field, the holophase itself. We have never left it. Every law, every derivative, every branch of the master tree, every sentence we have read or written is a way that phi can be, a way that phi can change. Your literacy is not literacy in 1,000 disconnected theories. It is literacy in one coherent substrate and in the structured questions we can ask about it. That unity is what makes this achievement so precious. Once you understand phi and its derivatives, you have, in principle, the conceptual tools to approach any phenomenon whatsoever. So let us close this chapter with a simple image. Imagine you have lived all your life in a city filled with signs, books, and symbols, but you could not read. The world was full of marks that meant something to other people, but to you they were decoration, noise, or mysterious patterns. Then, slowly, you learn the alphabet. You learn how letters combine into words, words into sentences, sentences into stories. One day, you step outside and realize that every sign, every poster, every page in every book has become meaningful. The city is the same, but it has come alive in a new way. That is where you stand now. The universe has not changed. The river still flows, the leaf still falls, the galaxy still spins, the mind still thinks, the heart still beats. But for you, something is different. You see structure where there was once only impression. You sense hidden unity where there seemed to be chaos. You hear beneath the noise of events the rhythm of omega, the shape of K, the dance of V. You are no longer just a passenger in a mysterious world. You are a reader of its primary language. Before we close, I want to offer you a few concrete suggestions for how to live with this literacy in your everyday life. The first suggestion is simple. Once a day, choose one small phenomenon and deliberately read it in the holophase way. It could be the steam rising from a cup of tea, the flow of people crossing a street, or the way light fades in your room as evening approaches. Ask yourself, gently and without pressure, what is the underlying phi here? What is actually changing? Then notice the rhythm, the shape, the flow, the connections, and the balances. You do not need any numbers. You only need curiosity. Over time, this will become natural, and your sense of the world as a continuous, structured unfolding will deepen. The second suggestion is to use the language when you think about problems. Whenever you feel stuck, ask yourself, am I missing one of the three echoes? Am I only thinking about time without considering space, or only about structure without considering motion? Many confusions come from looking at only a single projection of a triune reality. By deliberately checking all three, you invite hidden information to reveal itself. Often a situation that feels confusing becomes clearer the moment you ask, where is the gradient? Where is the flow? What is accelerating and what is slowing down? This is true in physics, in relationships, in work, and in inner life. The third suggestion is to share the essence of this language with others in simple words. You do not need to use the symbol phi or talk about jet bundles or reference any technical term. You can simply say, what if everything we see is one continuous something that is always changing, and time, space, and motion are three ways we notice that change? That sentence is already a doorway. If someone is interested, you can offer more. If they're not, you have still practiced holding the idea in your own words. Teaching, even casually, is one of the most powerful ways to stabilize understanding. Finally, I invite you to notice how this literacy affects your sense of meaning. For many people, physics and mathematics can feel cold, like a distant description that drains the world of magic. The Holophase language aims for the opposite. By revealing the unity under diversity, it invites a deeper sense of belonging. You are not a stranger in a dead universe ruled by arbitrary laws. You are a local melody in a single vast field, participating in the same grammar that shapes galaxies and atoms. When you watch a sunset, you can still feel awe at the colors, but you can also feel awe at the fact that the same underlying structure of derivatives is organizing the refraction of light, the scattering of wavelengths, and the timing of Earth's rotation. Beauty and understanding are not enemies here. They reinforce one another. The more you live with this perspective, the easier it becomes to integrate different domains of knowledge. Biology and economics, psychology and cosmology, engineering and art no longer sit in separate compartments. You begin to see how each field is studying different kinds of phi sentences under different conditions and constraints. You start to feel that learning anything new is simply learning another dialect of the same underlying language. This can be profoundly calming. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information in the modern world, you carry a quiet confidence that there is a simple backbone running through all of it. You know the backbone. You know the tree. If at some point you doubt your own understanding, you can always return to the simplest version of the story. One field. That field changes. Its changes can be measured in time, across space, and as motion. Ask how fast, ask where, ask how it flows. Ask again how those answers themselves change. That is the entire tower, waiting to be climbed as high as you need. Whenever you feel lost in details, drop back to this summary. It will orient you. As we prepare to leave episode 7, hold in your heart that this is not the end of the Holophase journey. It is the end of only one chapter, the chapter of becoming literate. Ahead of us lie chapters on memory, on information, on resonance, on structure formation, on life, mind, and meaning. In each of those chapters, we will revisit the language you have learned here. We will see how particular regions of the master tree are responsible for particular kinds of phenomena. We will see how certain combinations of derivatives give rise to stability, how others give rise to chaos, and how still others make possible the delicate patterns we associate with intelligence and consciousness. You are ready for that journey now. Without the literacy you have earned, the later episodes would feel like an avalanche of claims. With literacy, they become a guided tour through a landscape whose basic geometry you already know. Holophase is no longer an abstract theory sitting outside your life. It is a lens you can carry with you wherever you go, a way of seeing that will keep rewarding you as you explore new questions. So as we close, take one more slow breath. Feel the rhythm of that breath as omega. Feel the gentle gradient between the air outside and the air inside your lungs as K. Feel the motion of your chest and diaphragm as V. In that simple gesture, in that single inhalation and exhalation, you are witnessing phi in motion, phi in time, phi in space. You are reading a tiny sentence written by your own living body in the same language that writes the stars. This is literacy. This is the diploma of perception you have earned. And remember, nothing about this literacy demands perfection. You will not always have the patience to analyze everything around you, nor should you. Sometimes you will simply drink your tea, watch the clouds, or feel tired after a long day. That is natural. The point of this language is not to force the world into constant analysis, but to be there when you want to understand more deeply. It is like learning to read music. You can still enjoy a song without looking at the score, but when you want to, the score is available and intelligible to you. In the same way, the Holophase language is now available inside your mind as a quiet resource. Whenever life confronts you with beauty, with difficulty, with confusion, or with wonder, you can, if you choose, Open this inner notebook and let the structure of Phi help you see more clearly, feel more grounded, and act with a little more wisdom. That too is part of being literate now. This concludes chapter 14, closing the episode of Full Literacy. In the final part of this episode, we will look across to the next great peak, episode 8, where we will ask how this field that can speak also remembers what it has said. For now, rest a moment at this clearing on the mountain. Look back at the path you have climbed. Feel the strength in your legs, the clarity in your eyes, and the quiet joy of being able to read the world you live in. Salam, and peace be upon you.